The morning sun warmed the pavement as Mia Thompson stood outside the private jet terminal at Los Angeles International Airport. At 34 years old, she had built her medical technology company from the ground up, becoming one of the youngest black women to reach billionaire status. She should have been proud of everything she'd accomplished, but this moment wasn't about pride. It was about control, and the way it could be stripped away in an instant. Her jet, a sleek silver aircraft with her initials etched subtly near the tail, gleamed in the sunlight just steps away. It was waiting for her, ready to take her to San Francisco for an important summit. She walked toward it in her tailored black suit, her heels clicking softly against the tarmac. A group of flight crew members stood nearby, their conversation halting as they noticed her. Mia felt the weight of their gazes, disbelief, skepticism, and something colder, sharper. At the front of the group was the captain, a tall man with graying hair and an air of authority. He stepped forward, his expression carefully neutral, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of disdain. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said, blocking her path. "This jet is reserved for a VIP client. There's been a mistake." Mia stopped. She met his gaze, calm but firm. "There's no mistake," she said evenly. "I am the VIP." The captain's lips curled into a condescending smile. "Right. Let me double-check with the owner. In the meantime, you can wait in the lounge." The words stung more than Mia cared to admit, but she held her composure. Without another word, she turned and walked toward the lounge, her assistant Daniel trailing behind. His face was flushed with anger, but she raised a hand, silencing him before he could speak. Inside the lounge, the air was thick with tension. Mia sat in a plush leather chair by the window, staring out at her jet as the minutes dragged on. She could hear muffled laughter from the crew outside, their voices carrying an edge of mockery. Daniel paced by the door, his fists clenched. "This is absurd," he muttered. "You shouldn't have to put up with this." Mia didn't respond. She pulled out her phone and calmly called her legal team, outlining the situation in measured tones. She wasn't new to this kind of treatment, being doubted, dismissed, disrespected. But today, she decided, she wouldn't let it slide. Nearly an hour later, the lounge doors opened and the captain reappeared. His smugness hadn't waned. "Unfortunately, the owner isn't available to confirm your claim," he said, his tone dripping with false regret. Mia stood, her movements slow and deliberate. "Good," she said, her voice like ice. "We can resolve this now." She brushed past him, Daniel following close behind. At the foot of the jet stairs, she stopped and turned to face the captain. From her bag, she pulled out a folder and handed it to him. "These are my ownership papers," she said. "Take a good look." The captain's confidence faltered as he scanned the documents. His face paled, and he glanced back at the crew, who were now frozen in stunned silence. This is your jet," he stammered. "Yes," Mia said sharply, "and as of now, you and your team are dismissed. Collect your belongings and leave." The captain tried to stammer out a protest, but the weight of her authority and the undeniable truth in her hands left him speechless. One by one, the crew members filed off the jet, their heads bowed, their arrogance replaced with shame. Mia watched them go, her expression unreadable. Once they were gone, she walked up the stairs and into the jet, the door closing firmly behind her. But her work wasn't done. She called her public relations team and outlined her next steps. Within hours, footage of the incident was shared across social media, sparking a global conversation about racism, sexism, and the barriers Black professionals face. Mia didn't stop there. At a press conference the next day, she stood before a sea of cameras and spoke with quiet intensity. "This isn't just about me," she said. "Even with success, wealth, and power, we are not immune to prejudice. This is about dismantling a system that allows this kind of behavior to persist." Her words reverberated across the world, inspiring countless people to share their own stories. 2 weeks later, Mia launched the Open Skies Initiative, a program aimed at increasing diversity in the aviation industry. It offered scholarships for aspiring pilots from underrepresented backgrounds, mandatory training for airline staff, and mentorship programs to help dismantle systemic barriers. The program gained widespread support, and even some of the former crew members reached out, asking to be part of the change. Mia welcomed them, not out of forgiveness, but because she believed in the power of transformation. Months later, as Mia boarded her jet for another trip, she was greeted by a diverse crew who smiled warmly and treated her with the respect she deserved. She settled into her seat, looking out at the endless sky. This wasn't just a victory for her. It was a step toward a world where everyone, no matter their race or background, had the chance to soar. Mia closed her eyes and let out a long breath. The journey wasn't over, but today she could feel the winds shifting.
After all, sometimes the bravest thing isn't holding on to anger, but being willing to let it go one small piece at a time, even when forgiveness feels impossible. And maybe that's where healing truly begins, not in forgetting the past, but in finding the strength to face it and perhaps, in time, to forge something new from its ashes.